Welcome, everyone. We'll still wait for 1 minute and then give the floor to Jatinder Sidhu to kick off this webinar. Welcome, everyone. Jatinder, I think you can get started.
All righty. Folks, a very good afternoon. I'm Jatinder Sidhu. I hold a chair in strategic management and organizations at the Leeds University Business School, University of Leeds in the UK. But I'm introducing today's EURAM webinar in my role as Vice President of Research at EURAM. A very warm welcome to what is the second session of an exclusive webinar series for EURAM members. Going forward, this series will also bring presentations by the winners of the whole range of annual EURAM awards and grants. As you may know, these prestigious awards and grants are designed to recognize and foster excellence in management research and education across Europe and beyond. They celebrate outstanding contributions to the field of management, honoring scholars who have demonstrated exceptional innovation, rigor, and impact in their work. And these awards include the Edith Penrose Award, the Best Paper Award, Annual Best Paper Award, the Annual Best Book Award, and starting this year, an Impactful Researcher Award. In the future, we also aim to develop the webinar series into a forum for our members to come together to present and discuss the latest cutting-edge research. Before introducing today's speakers, I want to quickly introduce Dr. Marina Condet, who is the EURAM Executive Officer. Marine will help me today as regards the technical side of things. Marine, thank you very much. I'm delighted to introduce then our today's presenters. That is Professor Christoph Barmeyer, and he holds a chair in intercultural communication at the University of Passau, and Ms. Constanze Rath, who is a research associate and PhD candidate at the same university, University of Passau in Germany. Christoph and Constanze are the winners of the EURAM Best Book Award 2025 in their very compelling book, Key Questions and Inspiring Answers in Cross-Cultural Management, Conversations with Leading Women Scholars. They explore a fundamental question: how do our personal experiences shape the questions we ask as researchers, and how does our research in turn transform how we understand the world? The book reveals a rather interesting dynamic interplay between biography and scholarship. And in this webinar, they'll offer insights into the past, the present, and the future of the field of cross-cultural management. I realize that many folks in the audience today will wish to engage directly with the presenters by asking questions and offering comments. While there may be while there's certainly opportunity to do so during the Q&A after the presentation, should you wish, do also please feel free to enter any questions that come up in your mind during the presentation in the chat. I'll be happy to read these out during the Q&A if you want me to. With that, please join me in welcoming Christoph and Constanze. I'm delighted to have you here for the webinar. Thank you for joining us. I hand over the microphone to you. Thank you.
So welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us. We already see some colleagues and friends of our field. So it's an honor and a pleasure for Constanze and me to present now at the EURAM webinar, the Best Book Award 2025. We would like to thank the EURAM Vice President, Jatinder Sidhu, who just talked, and Marine Condet, the Executive EURAM Officer. She marvelously organized this webinar. So let us start from biography to scholarship. Connie, do you want to say some words?
Yes, hello everyone. My name is Constanze Rath. I'm a former research associate and PhD candidate at the University of Passau at the chair of Professor Barmeyer, and I am very honored to be here today.
So I'm the chair of intercultural communication, and I'm also co-leading together with Sylvie Chevalier and Mette Zöllner for now 10 years the SIG on culture and management at the EURAM conference. So we are coming from this beautiful city in Bavaria. Some of you may know it. It's in the southeast of Germany, 3 big rivers and an ancient town which built in the 16th century by Italian architects. And you see our nice campus below.
Great location to visit in case you're looking for the next spot.
So what is our agenda for the next 60 minutes? It's talking about the becoming of the book. We would like to share with you some enlightening insights and also some contributions of these women scholars to cross-cultural management, and finish with some impressions. And then, as we have already heard, we have time for questions and discussions. So we are really looking forward in the last 15 minutes to have an exchange with you. So let's start with the becoming of the book. Like every project, it's sometimes a little bit by chance. And in fact, we published a book, Landmarks in Intercultural Studies, a German book, where we looked on the biographies and the concepts and theories of famous interculturalists like Gerd Hofstede, Edward Hall, Gudi Kunst, Triandis. And when the manuscript or the book was published, Connie, you did a very important remark.
So I was looking at it and I thought there are so many important women scholars in the field, and I thought they were a little bit short in that book. So we had a conversation about it, and that led us then to come up with the idea of a book where we only focus on the women scholars of the field, the very important pioneers. And we had this unique approach in mind where we wanted to show the linkage of biography, scholarship, and interculturality, which you will hopefully find in our book.
And we have to say there were 27 personalities and only 3 women. That's why we come to Mary Parker Follett. I don't know if you know this person, very famous, one of the few women scholars in management studies the last century. And we have a nice quote here for you. Give your difference, welcome my difference. The unifying of difference is the eternal process of life, the creative synthesis, the highest act of creation, the atonement. That richer joy which comes from having taken part in an act of creation. This comes from 1980. So this illustrates the idea behind the book, because women are underrepresented in management research in the past. And Mary Parker Follett was a pioneer. She was a consultant, a social worker, and a philosopher. So coming from different fields, between practice and theory, he developed an interesting systemic and interdisciplinary perspective on what we know later as the organizational studies or organizational behavior. Mary Parker Follett had already had some very powerful ideas of integrating circular responses into management. She was looking on human beings, on the humanistic side of teams, of processes, of interactions. And this is why we think, because she overcame these dichotomies, we think she was very important for our book and for the cross-cultural management field. So as you know, the scholars here, when you write an article or a book, there will be an evaluation. This was also the case when we sent our proposal to Edward Elgar. And it was Professor Anvil Harzing evaluating our proposal. And for me, it was nice to see she was not filling out 6 or 7 pages, but just writing a few sentences. And what did she wrote? Great topic, excellent choice of interviewees, well balanced across topics and nationalities. Cross-cultural management would be a great field to start, as it has a predominance of female scholars and is a topic that attracts many women scholars. It has been a long time since I have been excited about a book, but I'm certainly excited about this one. I would love to read the book, and I would certainly it will be on my list of gift books to junior colleagues. So this sentence helped to accept the proposal of our book.
Yes, and this leads me to the central assumption of the book. So what did we do basically? We think that ideas and concepts are always a result of a particular cultural, societal, and historical context, but also a particular living and working environment and a particular time and place. So what we want to do in the book is we want to shed light on these aspects, and especially the relationship between the socio-cultural context, the biographies. We want to learn more about the person behind the researcher, the motivations and aspirations of the scholars, and of course, very important also for an overview of the field, the concepts and topics, in order for us to reveal connections, implications, and contributions to the field of cross-cultural management. And let me give you a quick overview of the book. So we want to illuminate the key concepts, methods, and issues of cross-cultural management. We have a very, I would say, profound first chapter that is like a summary introduction to the whole field of cross-cultural management. We have then our interviews with 12 leading women scholars that are following this introductory part. And then at the end, we conclude with a conclusion chapter of kind of summarizing the interviews, the learnings of the interviews, and giving an outlook to the future of the field. And all this is done with this narrative approach of interviews and, so to speak, letting the women scholars talk. And of course, we would like to give you some enlightening insights today. So this next section will be, as I said, we wanted to learn about the person behind the scholar. So we want to introduce them to you, who are the women scholars we selected for the interviews. And of course, also to give you an insight on what we think and hope that makes the book special in our eyes. So here you have an overview of our pioneering women scholars. We had the honor to interview Nancy Adler, Zeynep Aykan, Ariane Bertrand-Ontal, Nakiye Boyachigile, Mary Yoko Brannan, Paula Caligiuri, Sylvie Chevrier, Martha Mashnevsky, Joyce Osland, Sonja Sackmann, Susan Snyder, and Lena Sander. And you might ask yourself why we came up with these 12 women pioneers. And as I just said, we consider them as pioneers. So we wanted to focus on the women that paved the way for the field of cross-cultural management. Of course, there is not a perfect selection because there are so many more scholars we could have interviewed. But we are, as I said, very honored that we were able to conduct our interviews with the 12 women scholars that we would say are the pioneering women scholars of the field. And Christoph, there are also some here today, right?
Absolutely. So we have the pleasure and honor that some of the women scholars are here with us in the webinar, and maybe at the end we can open in the discussion and talk to them.
So as I said, we want to give you also an overview and more or less hear their voices of the women scholars. So this was the first question we had for them in the book, in our interviews, to also hear a little bit the opinion of the book. Christoph.
Yes, so Joyce Osland said, it's a good idea. In many fields, male scholars have historically received more attention. Women receive more recognition today. But it's interesting to see what women have contributed to all fields and better understand their journey.
Yoko Brannan said, there have always been many female scholars in the field of cross-cultural management, and no one has asked why. Perhaps this book will help to answer that question.
Marta Maschnewski said, "It's an intriguing idea. In most fields of business, if we are highlighting women's work, it's because they are a minority. But in this case, you are highlighting women's work because it's been more of a majority and shaping it."
And we have Lena Sander, who said, by presenting the actual voices of a group of female scholars, reflecting on their experience and their research in the field of cross-cultural management, this book will hopefully serve as an inspiration, particularly to younger female scholars. And then we were curious what the central philosophy of life is, to also get a bit and maybe look behind the scenes of the researchers, of the scholars. And we have Zeynep Aykan, who said, "My approach to life is circular, but not linear. The spiral is constantly expanding, starting from the essence and then spreading outside and again coming back to the essence, but in circular terms."
Susan Schneider said, "The object that represents my philosophy is a cloud. Clouds are always moving and overseeing the earth. So maybe it's flying in the clouds."
We have Paula Caligiuri, who says, "I do have a philosophy of life that was socialized from my family, my faith, and my life experiences. It is, don't compare, don't complain, and do not criticize."
Marioko Brennan said, "Even though we are born out of our mothers as seemingly independent beings, we are interdependent, and our actions impact those of others. That's something we must work against in our minds, to understand that we all share this space, and there are no differences than someone else. That's my basic philosophy."
We have Nancy Adler, who says, "I use an arts metaphor, choreography, to describe the process. As you know, I am both an artist and an international leadership professor. When I use watercolors, for example, you see the colors touch each other and run together. As they combine, they create new colors, textures, and patterns, while still keeping each original color's distinct identity."
And finally, Sonja Sackmann saying, "Life is a gift. And as a gift, my philosophy is to use my life and make the most of it. When you ask what image I would use for my life, I like to construe it as a journey to explore novelties."
Yes.
So what makes our book special? So we already have seen these several insights and personal references to interculturality, and we are going to show you more in a few seconds. By focusing on human beings, the fields become much more vivid, dynamic, and contextualized. We worked on narratives, and they show very well the link between academic achievements and biographical experiences. And finally, the interviews give some ideas for young professionals where and how to develop in the field.
Yeah, and we also think that the structure of the chapters is maybe something that makes the book a little special. So we have, first of all, we have these three parts. We have the biographical context. As we said, we want to look on the person behind, the personal experience of the scholars that they had with interculturality and how that might have also influenced the academic trajectory. We have then a part where we are looking more on the scholarly contributions in regards to topics, methodologies, findings that also they consider have defined their careers. And then we have this third part where we want to give the future outlook or summarize, and also want to hear from the women scholars what they see as evolving topics, maybe like the hot topics of cross-cultural management right now, and also offering their advice and inspiration for young scholars, for the next generation of scholars. And as you might assume, but this was also something that we found very strongly while we were conducting the interviews, is that there is almost all of the women scholars have a very deep and interesting intercultural background themselves. And so we wanted to give you some insights into this, what were the answers of some of the women scholars on this question, how did your own intercultural background shape your research about cultures? And we have a quote for you here from Nancy Adler, Christoph.
Like many scholars who study cross-cultural management, I grew up in a multicultural home. My mother comes from Vienna and my father from New York City. I was born in California. My mother left Austria because of World War II. My brother, sister, and I only learned about my mother's childhood once we were teenagers. From that moment on, I knew that there had to be better ways of resolving differences than murdering people. That, more than anything else, drove me to study cross-cultural management. I wanted to be part of finding ways for the peoples of the world to get along with each other, to build on each other's differences rather than annihilating each other's when serious conflicts arose.
We have Mariyuko Brennan who says, I was born as an American in Japan. I grew up with all sorts of cultural contradictions. From a very young age, I understood that the world was pluralistic. I realized that people could believe in heaven and hell, while others could believe in reincarnation. And both were all right. Trees in the Western world do not have souls, but in the Eastern world, they do. Endless examples come to mind. Growing up with such different ways of understanding the world formed the way I am. I am an interculturalist by accident of birth.
Sonja Sackmann said, my colleague and friend Margaret Phillips and I reflected on our own cultural background. I grew up in a village in the Black Forest, which is in Germany, close to the border to France, experienced many regional differences in Germany, national differences in Europe, and regional, ethnic, and professional differences in the US. These discussions spurred the thoughts about multiple cultures. Also, when I looked at my friends in California, they were not typical Americans. They all had varied backgrounds from various nations and ethnicities. Just being a critical observer of what was around me triggered these questions that I then pursued in research.
Lena Sanders said, from early on, it was my parents who unknowingly inspired me towards research and teaching within cross-cultural management. My mother, who enjoys meeting and talking with people, would remind me to try to put myself in the shoes of those around me, to immerse myself into their situation and imagine how they felt to get a better understanding of how to interpret communication and behavior. My father was engaged in management by walking around and thereby got to know the employees. Facilitation was a part of his job, which occasionally involved a fair amount of diplomacy when there were conflicts between the different cultural groups working together. My parents strongly inspired me in more ways than one. They were an exemplary combination of cognitive and affective aspects and outspoken about the importance of trying to understand each other in a multicultural world.
Ariane Bertrand-Ontal said, I think that my interest in the topic stems from my lifelong process and not one particular moment. It was simply the natural flow of my life that allowed me to live and to be in different countries and contexts, also recognizing that one can experience cross-cultural problems even within a country. I grew up speaking English, French, and Italian as a child. At school in California, I was delighted to learn Spanish and discovering a new body of literature. In college, I majored in foreign languages and cultures, finally pursuing my dream of learning Russian, to which I decided to add discovering German and Japanese. Put simply, I have always been hungry to learn languages, different languages, and understand other cultures.
And we have Naki Boyachile, who says, my interest in this field is absolutely a direct result of my personal history. Let me describe a bit of that history. I was born in Los Angeles, California in 1953 to August and Belkis Avdan. My father was provided an education by the Turkish government. As a child, my identity was completely American and I only spoke English. Then tragedy struck my family. We suffered a horrendous auto car accident. My mother died and my father barely survived. My Turkish and extremely caring extended family immediately jumped into action. I faced many cultural differences that I then defined as natural, but in retrospect stemmed from a range of cultural identities, including age and religion. So now that we saw how intercultural the backgrounds of the women scholars are that we interviewed, and also how touching, we also realized sometimes there are not necessarily an own intercultural backstory, but maybe a key event that triggered the interest in interculturality. And we brought also some quotes here.
Sylvie Chevier said, Canada was my first expatriation, and very soon I discovered that I was interested in going deeper into studying cultures. Besides the large spaces in Montreal and the physical display of cities, which were really different from France, the first feeling when you come from France is the feeling of familiarity. Speaking the same language makes it so easy to connect with other people. You do not discover right away that you do not speak exactly the same cultural language.
We have Zainab Aykan, who says, our professional choices in life come from the need to make sense of things happening in our lives, especially in our early years. I was born and raised in a so-called intercultural marriage. I say so-called because my parents were not from different countries of the world, but they came from the eastern and western regions of the country. In her case, this is Turkey. From early age, I have always experienced differences in values and practices in my family. I was puzzled by these differences, and I was trying to make sense of it. In college, I took the cross-cultural psychology course from Jigdem Kajigis Bazi. I apologize, I could not figure out how to pronounce this correctly. She became my role model and mentor in life. In the first class, I said, this is it. This is what my parents are experiencing, cross-cultural differences. This first aha moment changed my life, and I decided to study culture and cultural differences.
Paola Caligiuri, my different experiences in Italy made all the difference. When I returned to the US, my American psychology professors at Canisius College, Judy Larkin and Harvey Pine said, Paola, what's wrong with you? You seem so down, sad and depressed. And I said, I don't know, I just feel different. I'm still me. I'm surrounded by my friends and family, but something is different. They said that if studying abroad had such a powerful experience in my life, I should study it. They sent me to the library. There I discovered important articles by luminaries like Nancy Adler and Rosalie Tung. So we can already draw a little synthesis on what we showed you and what the interviews revealed, and we can really find reflexivity in these researchers' mind. So in fact, becoming more aware of own cultural assumptions. We then see that research is also a tool for self-discovery. Second, we see that an intercultural biography is an asset. And this is something not only meant to scholars, but to everybody. And then third, we see that creating structures that support authentic scholarship are very important. We had a lot of examples of mentoring, of developing in safe spaces for diverse voices.
Yeah, and this leads us to the next section. So we want to, of course, also show the contribution of the women scholars to the field. So we'll give you a little overview of what their key contributions were. And I would like to highlight here that it was also important for us to ask them about this question, because it might be that the most important contribution to them is not necessarily the most cited article or the one that was published in the most prestigious journal, but maybe something else that is close to their heart. So we also brought you the answers, a quick overview of the answers that we got by the women scholars. And we have Nancy Adler, who says it was cultural synergy, beauty and leading beautifully, and the importance of context. We have Zeynep Aykan, who said paternalistic leadership, cultural tightness and looseness, as well as the culture of empowerment. Ariane Bertrand-Ontal mentioned her topics of negotiating reality, repatriate knowledge transfer, and the real life cases. And Nakiye Boyachigile, who said the culture construct, global mindset, and critique of the US-American predominance on theories.
Mayuko Brennan expressed the concept of negotiated culture, the recontextualization, and her work on multiculturalism and biculturalism. Paula Caligiuri stressed the concept of cultural agility, predictors of expatriate success, and the nature and quality of international experiences. Sylvie Chevrier underlined the typology of intercultural teams, the relationship of languages and cultures, and the synthesis of the field of cross-cultural management. Marta Maschnewski stressed leadership, multicultural and virtual teams, and different contexts of diversity. For Joyce Osland, it was the development of global leadership, the complexity of culture, and repatriate knowledge transfer. For Sonja Sackmann, it was people as carriers of multiple cultures, culture dynamic and complexity, and culture as context. Susan Schneider said role of emotions in multicultural teams, spheres of cultures, and impact of culture on strategy. And Lena Zander, culture and interpersonal leadership, global team leadership, cross-cultural research, perspective on international business research. And then we can see, when we look on the field of cross-cultural management and evolution, to which the female scholars have mainly contributed. So on the left side, you see the classical, the older cross-cultural management. On the left side, the newer, the intercultural management. So we move from cultural comparisons to intercultural interactions. We move from the concept of one national and hermetic culture to multiple cultures. In ancient time, the cultures were static. In newer times, they are dynamic. In cross-cultural management, the analysis of culture was predominant. In intercultural management, it's much more the interpretation of cultures. We move from mostly quantitative and ethic approaches to more qualitative and emic approaches. Whereas cross-cultural management was much using and testing existing concepts such as power distance or individualism, in intercultural management, it's much more conceiving new concepts such as cultural synergy, multiple cultures, negotiated culture, or cultural agility. So concepts we see in the book.
Yes, and now we would also like to shed some insight on what impressed us during the process of writing the book and conducting the interviews. So we want to show you basically our little aha moments that we had while we were going through it. Christoph, what impressed us?
Yes. So what does these women scholars have in common? We really saw this humanistic attitude of comprehension, of in some way helping people to better understand social phenomena, to better interact with each others across cultures. We then have seen innovative research topics, as you have seen on another slides, that were quite ahead of their time. We also have the courage to think outside the box against mainstream. And very important, following their own research interests, not really to get the most citations, but being interested in the subject, in the field, in the phenomena. So there's a very strong conviction. We can also see different times and how these women scholars paved the way for others, for young scholars. And finally, and this may be in the discussion at the end of our webinar, we had quite different answers concerning the question, is there a special approach of women towards research on culture and interculturality? And we had really a very broad range of women scholars saying, no, it doesn't matter, and others saying, well, maybe there's something very special, very feminine in our approach, which may be linked to gender.
Yes, and now in more or less like the sense of our book, we would like to give the word, so to say, back to our women scholars. We call this the wise advice, because we asked the question of their advice on how to conduct meaningful research for the next generation of scholars. And we brought you the quotes again with their answers. So Mary Yoko Brennan says, "Follow your own path and be who you are." This is her advice.
Marta Maschnewski said, "Reach out to the networks."
We have Zeynep Aykan who says, "Be gutsy."
And Sonja Sackmann, I would say, follow your heart.
Akali Judy says, "Do something you love."
Sylvie Chevrier said, "Start from questions and problems coming from the field."
Susan Snyder says, "Find the schools that are interested in what you're doing and find people that you want to work with."
Joyce Osland said, "Seek universities that truly respect the cross-cultural management field."
Ariane Bertrand-Tal, "Pose questions that interest you."
Nancy Adler, "Do I want to research the ordinary, or do I want to attend the extraordinary?"
Nakia Boyachile, "Build your empirical toolbox." And we have Lena Sander, who says, "Learn from helpful, well-published scholars."
So our presentation is finished. We hope that we could give you some insights concerning this book. And now we can start questions and discussions.
Christoph, Constanze, thank you very much for this wonderful presentation. So I'm happy to open the floor for questions, comments. If you raise your hands, I can just call you out. Just let me see. The first hand up is Georgetta Fernandez. Please feel free to pose your question or comment.
Yes, hello everybody. I just wanted to congratulate the speakers on their presentation, and it was very helpful. So just to say congratulations and thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I saw another hand going up. It is Bahar Moral Legal. I'm sorry for the pronunciation. I'm sure my name will give you some trouble as well.
That's okay.
Please.
This is my PhD student, Bahar, and we're together. I'm Zeynep Ayken, one of the people in the book. Congratulations, absolutely, to all wonderful women and you guys putting it together. I'm wondering if you have any plans to do the same for male scholars, and that would be a fantastic comparison for all of us to see.
Thank you, Zeynep, for this comment. We were waiting for another comment. We were waiting for a comment of more younger, upcoming female scholars. But this question we were not prepared, and maybe we could do a book together. Yes, but I mean you're right, and in fact, what is the idea really is to see this link, biography, research, and the idea of the editor Elgar was to publish more books also on other disciplines with the same approach in psychology, in anthropology, in sociology, in management studies. So I think it's a nice approach to learn about our community, about how things evolve. And so let's keep in mind this project, Zeynep.
Please go ahead, Carmet Tadmore.
Hi, so congratulations. I love the topic, and it's amazing to highlight these exceptional, wonderful women, and getting a chance to get a peek into what led them to think the way they are is such an incredible behind the scenes look. And I really resonate with what Anne Willa-Hartzig said in her acceptance of the book proposal, that I think it's such a beautiful gift for young scholars to think within themselves how to reach for the interesting questions. So it's a really beautiful guiding map. So congratulations, and I can't wait to read it and to force all my students to read it as well. So thank you, congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you, Carmen. That actually resonates with me, because I mean, I would consider me maybe the next generation. You know, I'm a PhD student, and I was so humbled and amazed doing these interviews because I learned so much just doing it, and so I can definitely agree with the comment that this is a huge inspiration, in my opinion, and it was for myself, and so I hope it is also for other younger students. And what Christoph said also on one of the last slides, it was really mind-blowing for me to see what differences there were in the times that some of the women scholars what they had to struggle with, to deal with, and I'm very grateful that this is already, yeah, for me this would not have been an issue, being really sometimes the very first women at the university or in this field, and it was, yeah, a whole different type of challenge, and I thought that was also very interesting to see.
Thank you. Niels Noorderhaven.
Hi. I just wanted to share an observation, and that's that although the researchers interviewed came from different countries, many of them share a strong, I would say, USA-based perspective. And I was wondering, you know, whether someone would like to reflect on that, and whether that is a disadvantage, something that, you know, maybe the next book should be about non-Western cross-cultural management research.
Yes, it's right. We have reflected this in our introduction, and by the way, where I criticized the contemporary Sage Handbook of Cross-Cultural Management. It's a big book, and 95% of the authors are Western authors, all coming from different cultures, but socialized in Anglo-Saxon countries. I think the answer is The pioneering, when we look on the history of intercultural communication and cross-cultural management, it was Anglophone countries, a little bit France, a little bit Germany, and now it moves and changes. And this is why we think we should maybe write another book or edit another book, and taking into account all the other cultures, countries now working in the field. Thank you for the comment.
Thank you. Then we move on to Heindel Astrid.
Yes, hello. So actually, Niels Norderhaven bet me to the question. I was asking the exact same question. When can we expect volume 2? Because I think you already have all the basic work done. You already have the interview questions, and you said yourselves that you couldn't interview everyone that you wanted to interview. So I don't know. Maybe that would be interesting also in light of the first comment. Reflecting with men, reflecting with people from other socioeconomic backgrounds, maybe. So, yeah. So, and other than that, it is just left for me to say congratulations. You really deserve this award.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Then we have Sylvie Chevrier.
Yeah, thank you very much, and congrats for having given us this opportunity to share our experience, and most importantly to read the stories of our colleagues, which are really fascinating. And what I found particularly interesting is the relation between the biography and the knowledge production. I think it's I don't know if it's specific to this topic or if we could find that in all the topics in management, basically. But in this field, I think it's very clear, as you showed, that there's a strong connection between life experience and the knowledge production. And in terms of methodology, I think it has a lot of implication. Another point I just would like to stress is that beside the fascinating stories, I think that your own contribution in the beginning and the end of the book to provide an overview and the future avenues for research are absolutely great and amazing. And I don't want to talk too much because honestly I would have a lot of comments to do, and I really enjoyed the experience. But if I had to maybe to conclude, I just would like to say that it's nice tonight to be, I would say, in a space where people are interested in this topic. But my concern is that this topic, I think, is getting a bit less of attention in the research area, not necessarily in the teaching area, because now I think cross-cultural management is widely taught, but in research. And here we are not, of course, a good representation because we are very much keen on this topic. But overall, I feel there's a bit less of interest, while I think it's still very much needed. And when we see how the world is going, we see that intercultural understanding is still very much needed. But I think, we are hurt by huge challenges, artificial intelligence, climate change, but the way we can solve them and address them does not save us from thinking about our cross-cultural relations. And I think we should articulate these topics more than finding that the new ones should replace oldest ones. So that would be my conclusion on that. And thank you again for this great experience that you provided to all of us.
Thank you, Sylvie.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the feedback, Sylvie. Then we go on to David Guttormsen. Please go ahead.
Yes, hello. Very nice to see all of you. Greetings from Bangkok. I have a question. I'm curious about on the spinning off the very important point, I think, also from Niels, about the non-mainstream voices and dynamic perspectives. I think that would be a brilliant follow-up book for the excellent team of authors to consider. And my question is, when you did the interviews, did you get an impression of how the scholars themselves reflexively thought about how their background might influence the way they did research, and if we are still too stuck? I guess that's a leading question, but with cultural differences, and that we don't move beyond that. Are we still too much stuck in cross-cultural management in the business school context? Congratulations as well with the book. So I look forward to reading that soon. Thank you.
Thank you, David. So maybe we can ask this question to the women scholars who are here. I mean, it's all the question of self-reflexivity, and it would be perhaps now the moment to hear their voice, not only through our filters from Connie and me, but directly. Is there somebody who would like to say? Yeah. Mariko?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Is my mic on? Okay. Just a couple of things. I mean, I think a simple a go-to answer is, well, women self-reflect as a general rule, and so you have a bunch of women and they self-reflect, which kind of brings me to another comment that I've been thinking about while we're listening to this, and it's throwing a question back, but what would a new generation of scholars think about having a gendered book when we're in the stage of gender non-binary? So I resist stereotypes of any kind. I mean, being an ethnographer, knowing that there's such difference within culture, and on the other hand, I really appreciated the book and reading what my colleagues said, and I do feel that it was I was going to say kind, but brave of you to do a book focused on female scholars, because as Martha Masneski said, even though our field is populated by women scholars, it's not the women scholars who get cited very much. It's the male scholars that have been cited a lot in terms of culture research. So I don't know, I have a tendency to see things not contradictory or contrary, but just kind of what else does that mean? And then the other thought that I have, and I've always felt this, and this is probably due to my own background as well, is that a resistance for being seen as a Western scholar, because most of my education was not in the West, and though my PhD is, and maybe Niels, maybe that's what you mean by this. But if we look at the book, pretty much all of the scholars were multicultural in many ways, in several ways themselves, and really benefited from other ways of education that form their view of the world. Yeah, and so I'm wondering, well, I guess my final thought is that where did these people, and this might be good for the second book as well, where do they find reception for their work? And for me, I find the most reception for my work not in the USA. I find the people interested in the type of work that I do in France, in Scandinavia, Japan, Asia, places where people are interested in more humanistic, talking to people type of research. So, yeah.
Thank you, Marioko. Do you want to respond, Christoph, any chance of Constanze or anybody else for that matter? So please go ahead, Christoph. I think you wanted to say something.
I think it's fine. It's great what Marioko mentioned, and difference. It's really a very important differentiation of elements. So I can just underline it.
Christoph, clearly Marioko has a very distinct perspective. So I was wondering whether there were, for you, as you were working on this project, surprising disagreements or diversity of perspectives that came up as you interviewed the 12 scholars.
Yes, I mean, it was very interesting because even if the scholars came from very different disciplines, the interest and the motivation in culture, language, management was the same. And even if they have other scientific paradigms, some more functionalistic, some more critical, some more interpretive, the huge difference was in fact, do we consider our work as something which was feminine or not? And some said, no, don't stereotype, gender stereotypes. I don't want to hear it, and there's no difference. Or you cannot explain it by gender. And I think what is important, we didn't want, Connie and I, we didn't want to write a book on gender and feminism. We just wanted to show that women contributed to the field. And one of my last slides was a sort of resume, and it came up last night because I wanted to do a nice synthèse à la française. It was, in fact, that mostly all these women scholars looked on human beings, on processes. And this is why we started with Mary Parker Follett. And Joyce Osland was mentioning Mary Parker Follett. So it's human being, it's relations. It's not the functional static side of management, but it's relations.
Yes.
The interest in culture and languages in general. I'm teaching in Passau, and Connie and I, we studied, and I know there's Ina Groskopf here. We studied international culture and business studies. 95% of the students are women. So this interest in cultures and language, I think, was something which was also unifying, and qualitative research. Not all the scholars do qualitative research, but most. And so there were, in fact, some elements and this was surprising for us, which showed that there may be a certain feminine style in research. But I mean, this is very dangerous, and but we saw it.
Lovely. Christoph, thank you for that. In the interest of time, I'll be only able to take one more question. I see that Andrea has her hand up for some time. So, okay. So in which case, this might be the perfect moment to bring this webinar to an end. There goes a lot of time in and effort in preparing something like this. So thank you very much, Christoph and Constanze, for being with us. I'm very grateful to you that you could be with us today. Thank you for a wonderful and engaging presentation. I'm confident that the audience enjoyed the webinar as much as I did. Thank you also to the audience for your questions, feedback, and for your engagement with our presenters. So to everyone, a very good rest of the day, and see you at the next webinar in our series. Thank you very much. Take care.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, all of you. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity. Bye-bye.
Thanks, colleagues. Thanks a lot. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.